This week on the show, the madness has begun. We break down the bracket with Aaron Torres of The Athletic. Tiger Woods, is he back? We'll discuss. In a wild week of NFL free agency. All that and more coming up. Calling It starts right now. It's that time of year again. The toughest why can't I haven't been in school in years. Multiple choice test.
Yeah.
You take in your life. March Madness is here. This is the Calling It podcast. Alex Barth, Alex Lebowitz. Let's get right into the madness. Joining us on the phone, he is the host of the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. You can read his work at The Athletic. Aaron Torres, thank you for joining us.
Fellas, the pleasure is mine. I'll say this. If any of us scored on our SATs what we did on this multiple choice test, I don't think any of us would have college degrees right now, because this multiple choice test, probably the hardest one, like you guys said, we're going to take all year. Maybe, like I said, harder than a lot of the ones we took when we were in school.
I have that joke left over from high school. I have to use it every year because I can only use it once a year. Let's start, before we get to the madness, that is the bracket. Let's get to the madness that was the selection show, because, first of all, the show itself was a disaster. They listed the teams alphabetically. The lights went out in the studio at one point. And then they left what seemed like obvious teams off the bracket. USC, I believe, was ranked 33rd in the RPI. They're not on there. Is this because of the FBI investigation, or is there an actual basketball reason you think they got left off?
I don't think it's because of the FBI. I think the basketball reasons are why they were left off, and I think they were terrible. I also think, guys, by the way, with USC specifically, I think there's something else that needs to be said, and that's that I believe, and it's maybe because I live in L.A., I believe that true West Coast bias exists. I really genuinely do. You think about USC. First of all, the concept of the selection committee, I have no general problem with it, but these are athletic directors. These are conference commissioners and associate conference commissioners. One, they're not basketball people, and two, they're way too busy to sit around watching basketball all day. So I find it hard to believe that anyone on the selection committee has watched, one, as much basketball as myself or anyone who covers this sport for a living, and two, there's no actual basketball people on this committee. And so I think you could look at a case like USC. First of all, I think all of the intangibles are there. Finished second in the regular season, finished second in the Pac-12 in the conference tournament. Obviously, they struggled in the out-of-conference, but all you have to do is look at the box scores. They were missing, their sixth man for 11 games. They missed Benny Boatwright, their second leading scorer, for 13 games. But also, just ask a basketball coach, and they'll tell you, man, that's a team that I don't want to play. They got a bunch of future pros on that team. Steve Lavin during the conference tournament actually said, this will be one of the toughest double-digit seeds in the history of the NCAA tournament, assuming, like the rest of us, that they were going to get in. And so, look, I just think at the end of the day, I think it was a couple things. I think East Coast bias really exists. You look at Syracuse's resume, there is nothing on there that indicates they should be an NCAA tournament team. I think you could make the case that there are legitimately 6 or 7 teams that deserve to be in over Syracuse, including a couple from their own conference. But I think that when you look at USC specifically, I just think that it's the West Coast bias, it's the fact that they're not a high-profile program, and I just don't believe that anyone did their due diligence to look enough into their resume, because if they did, I truly believe that we would be at a moment in time where you would just say there's absolutely no way that this team, USC, should be left out of the NCAA tournament. I think you can make the case about a few other teams as well. I think a few teams got in that shouldn't have, but I think USC is the most egregious one to me.
What team's the biggest underdog, or what team do you look at that maybe got a low ranking, a low seed, that you think might make some noise this March?
Well, I think whoever wins the St. Bonaventure UCLA play-in game, which is tomorrow night, is going to have a really good chance against Florida. UCLA is a team that again, from the Pac-12, they beat Arizona at Arizona. They beat Kentucky on a neutral court earlier this year. And Aaron Holiday is one of the most underappreciated players anywhere in college basketball. But I would add that if there's anyone that's as underappreciated as him, it's probably Jalen Adams from St. Bonaventure, who is an unbelievable player. I think that Jalen Adams will end up as a second-round NBA draft pick. He will play in the NBA for a long time. And so when you have a lead guard that can do the things that those two guys can do, I think it's going to give fits to Florida, which has just been a really up and down kind of inconsistent team throughout the year. You look at some other places, Nevada's a 7 seed. I don't know that they're considered any kind of, upset-minded team because of the fact that they're a 7, but I think point blank, they're just better than Texas, who they play in round 1. And in round 2, I like Eric Musselman, who is a former NBA head coach, on a short turnaround to be able to get his team ready against Cincinnati. I like Cincinnati. I think they're really good. They're a good physical team. But Nevada has players that can create, and I think they have the coaching edge. Not many people know much about Eric Musselman. He coaches out here on the West Coast at Nevada, non-Power 5 school. I guess by technical definition, Cincinnati's a non-Power 5 school as well. But you look at Mick Cronin, he hasn't had a ton of success in the NCAA tournament, and so that's a spot right there where, although I know Nevada as a 7 seed isn't necessarily kind of the team you think of when you think of upset-minded, but I like them to make a little run here.
You were on the bandwagon from the beginning of the season. You'd mentioned Florida earlier, that SEC basketball would have a revolution this year. You were right. They have the second most teams in the tournament. I believe it's 8.
I'm always right, guys. Pay attention. I'm always right. Always right, but continue.
Well,
Keep talking about how great I am. I enjoy it.
Well, Alex Lebowitz across the table already circled the UCLA St. Bonaventure winner, and Nevada's moving to the next round on his bracket. So
I'm taking notes right now.
He's doing his bracket live time as we do this. But about the SEC, they got a tough draw. Tennessee and Kentucky are in the same bracket. Missouri could possibly have to face a 1 seed in the second round. Alabama could possibly have to face a 1 seed in the second round. How much of this, I guess you call it Cinderella SEC season, how much can that continue through the tournament given the draw they got?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I actually don't think that a lot of the matchups suit the SEC programs well. I don't think that takes away from the fact that they were the best conference in the regular season in college basketball. But you look at Kentucky having to play Arizona potentially in the second round. You look at, as you guys mentioned, Missouri getting a second round matchup potentially with the number 1 seed. You look at Alabama getting a number 1 seed in Villanova in round 2. Auburn, I think, probably peaked about 3-4 weeks ago. So, I think these can be two separate conversations. I think that you can say that the SEC was the best regular season college basketball conference in college basketball, and I think that's accurate. They won the Big 12 SEC Challenge. Tennessee beat Purdue in the out-of-conference. Alabama and Arkansas both beat Oklahoma. Missouri had some success. You go on and on down the list. By the way, Texas A&M beat West Virginia, beat Oklahoma State, beat USC, beat Penn. So you can say all that and also say that these particular matchups don't bode well for the SEC. So to me, I think that both of those things are factually correct. I think you guys are smart to maybe sniff that out a little early. Is that as good as the regular season was? I think it could be a tough NCAA tournament for this league.
And we're talking to Aaron Torres of The Athletic. Aaron, are there any coaches that you look at that might be on the hot seat that need to get, to the Sweet 16, Elite 8 to keep their job this March?
Are you asking me if there is, or are you
Are there? Do you see anyone that has something to prove? That's kind of coming to the end of their term, and if they don't make a splash, then they're out.
No, usually, at most schools, getting to the NCAA tournament is enough to keep your job. Obviously, at Kentucky, North Carolina, Duke, they expect you to do much more. I don't know if there's anybody that necessarily needs to make a deep run to keep their job. I will say, I think there's a couple coaches that I think they're kind of in put up or shut up mode, kind of as far as their kind of careers. I think that it's no secret that we're all waiting for Virginia to break through in an NCAA tournament. Now, I will say in defense of Virginia, if they lose to Kentucky or Arizona in the Sweet 16 and they don't make it to the Elite Eight or the Final Four, that doesn't mean they're a bad team. It means they got a bad draw. I think Arizona's in much the same case. If they lose to Kentucky, which I don't think they will, I'm not saying that that doesn't mean that they're a bad team. So I'll be really curious to kind of see how all of that plays out, specifically with those two schools, Arizona and Virginia. It feels like I truly believe that the winner of that Sweet 16 game, if it happens, will probably end up making the Final Four. I actually think it's fair to say if Kentucky and Arizona play, the winner of that game, if they get the winner of Virginia, I think whoever wins that Sweet 16 game between those three teams will probably make the Final Four out of that region. But it's going to be really interesting. Like I said, I don't think anybody's going to lose their job, but I do think it's kind of put up or shut up time.
Not necessarily from a picking region, but in terms of having to survive and get to the Final Four, what's the toughest region? It's got to be the Midwest, right? Kansas, Duke, Michigan State.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. What I would add is that I think the West, the top four teams are really, really, really interesting. You look at the fact that Xavier's the one seed, obviously the weakest number one. UNC playing insanely well right now down the stretch. They struggled a little bit, but did they really struggle? They lose on a buzzer beater to Miami. But they were a team that was a different team over the second half of the year. Michigan obviously winning the conference tournament in the Big Ten. And I think Gonzaga, it's crazy that team made the national championship game and could be back in position to make a deep run. So I think those top four are the most intriguing, but I do agree that there's no doubt in the Midwest. It's funny, every year everyone claims that Duke gets the easiest draw or Kansas gets the easiest draw. Nobody's making that claim this year. Nobody's making that claim. That is a tough Sweet 16, and I'll be honest, just looking at the bracket, specifically at the bottom with Michigan State and Duke, I don't see anyone beating either of those teams to kind of upset kind of that, inevitability. Kansas, could I see them losing in the second round? Potentially, but I think it's very realistic that not only is it the toughest bracket on paper, but that those top three seeds actually end up getting there, which, as we know, doesn't always happen.
So before we let you go here, Aaron, I asked everybody who came on the show for March Madness last year this question. I got to ask you, put you on the hot seat. Is this the year that a 16 beats a 1? And if it happens this year, who is it?
I don't think so, because Villanova and Virginia specifically, they're just not the kind of teams that are going to play down to the competition. Like some years you get a really young Duke team or a really young Kentucky team as a number one seed, and you say, well, they've never been in the tournament before. Could they come out, overextended, overprepared, whatever? And Villanova and Virginia are just not the kinds of teams that are going to lose to a 16 seed. I find it hard to believe that Xavier will, simply because they're playing two of the worst number one seeds, the two teams that are going to battle for a number one. I think an interesting one is Penn and Kansas. Penn was really, really, really good down the stretch. Kansas, we know, struggles in the NCAA tournament. But the one thing about Kansas, I will say, they're usually very good in the front-end games. So the first round, the Sweet 16 games. If they lose, it's usually in that game where they have short preparation time. So I would say if I had to pick one, the most likely would be Penn over Kansas. But I'm not going to be the guy that goes on that limb this particular year.
It is certainly a top-heavy year, I'll give you that. He is Aaron Torres, writes for The Athletic. You can listen to his podcast as well, the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. Check that out. After this one, I listened this morning, had some help filling out my bracket, so thank you for that.
Yeah?
And,
you had fun? Yeah. Did you like it?
I did. I still got some more to do. I'm going to go finish it when I get home and finish filling in the bubbles, but thank you very much for the help, and there'll for sure be a shout-out if I take the W this year.
About the terrible selection show, I went on a little epic rant there at the beginning.
Oh, it was I was right there with you. It was absolutely awful. They took something that really doesn't need to be complicated and ruined it.
Totally agree. No, I totally agree. The worst part was showing the automatic bids at the beginning. Like, we literally know who 63 of the 68 teams are. We don't need the 32 that are locks. Like, I don't need to be told again that Villanova won the Big East. I remember that game. It happened 24 hours ago. Just give me the bracket. And then, by the way, I know we got to go, guys. Here's the other thing that drove me crazy. I was so flustered from the awful beginning, the awful first 20 minutes, that when the bracket actually came out, I wasn't even paying attention. I was still processing that we already knew who was in, who was out. So hopefully they learn from their mistakes, and next year we just get back the show that we all liked. As you guys said, you don't need to fix something that doesn't need fixing.
Look, as somebody who covered D3 sports for a number of years, I've watched my share of Division III selection shows. They just run down the bracket. Okay. It takes 10 minutes. You're done. That's the ideal format for me. I just want to get to putting ink on paper. I don't need a whole show. But maybe that's just me.
Well, and I would add this too, is that, if you're worried about kind of holding the rating, I think most of the audience is going to sit there for the actual analysis. Like, I want to hear what Charles Barkley and my buddy Seth Davis I want, like, it's not one of those where I see the bracket and then I just turn off the TV and go on to the next thing. Like, I actually want to hear what those guys have to say. So I'm with you guys. I hope they do it a little bit different next year. I believe it or not, I have no say in these things, but that was not good at all.
Again, he's Aaron Torres from The Athletic. Catch his podcast as well, the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. Link is in his Twitter bio, @Aaron_Torres. Aaron, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Callin' It is brought to you by American Broadcast Coaches, training the next generation of media talent and communicators. For more information, check out AmericanBroadcastCoaches.com.
Oh, the weather outside is frightful, but the fire is so... I think we're in the clear for like another monstrous snowstorm, and if we get one, I feel like we're right around the corner of having like 50s consistently. And I brought some corn for popping. The lights are turned way down low. Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.
That was our very own Alex Lebowitz just a week ago after the first storm. Here we are recording this on Monday before the third storm. What do you have to say for yourself?
I'm sorry. You know what? It was 70 degrees out a month ago. I was in shorts and a T-shirt walking around without a care in the world. And I thought we were done. I thought it was over. I thought that spring was right around the corner. I could smell the baseball gloves. I could smell the grass. And I had power out for 2 days last week because of heavy snow. So, you know what? It happens. I know not to jinx weather ever again. Mother Nature is not to be messed with.
So when you're sitting in your house before your phone dies because you don't have power from the third nor'easter in a week and a half, you can tweet @Alex_Lebowitz and blame him for your unfortunate situation.
It's all my fault. I jinxed it.
Shame.
Where's that sounder when we need it? Yeah, it's you know what? We have another storm coming tomorrow. I don't think it's going to be quite as bad as what we saw last week. I don't think it's going to
Are you kidding me?
I'm doing it.
You're on the. Okay,
I'm doing it again.
You're on the North Shore. It's a little different for you.
Yeah. That's all I care about.
I'm supposed to get 24 inches.
Well, that sucks.
2 feet.
Good luck with that. You'll have power out from the snow. I could see my breath in my room on Friday afternoon before the power came back on. It was bad. It was bad. Good luck with that. Get a generator.
@Alex_Lebowitz. That is where you direct your blame. That is where you direct your frustration for this storm. If you can't find his Twitter, he's in our bio @CallinItPodcast on Twitter. The worst part about all of this snow, and you mentioned being close and smelling the grass and the baseball gloves and whatever, I thought I was going to be able to golf soon. And I see the notification for the storm come up on TV while I am watching the Valspar Championship, was just kind of twisting the knife. Especially because now Tiger is back. Tiger, I will say it. This is not a Texas is back, folks, proclamation, because we know how that works. Tiger Woods is back in the Masters. This is going to be the most hyped Masters of at least the last decade.
You already bought in. He's back. It's official.
He was one stroke off the lead. How is he not back? That's a hell of a performance.
Hey, he had a good tournament. He played very well. He was hitting his shots. He was pinpointing it, and he looked like vintage Tiger. Will it last? I don't think so. I don't think so.
You don't think he can at least be competitive at the Masters? Again, the final standings, if you don't know, Paul Casey came out, didn't know that the day was about Tiger. For whatever reason, thought it was the Ryder Cup. Shot a 65 day on Sunday and won with 10 under. Patrick Reed finished tied with Tiger Woods at 9 under. And then Sergio and everybody else followed in suit. You don't think after seeing that and seeing what he did in the Honda Classic and seeing what he's done in the last couple of tournaments, I'm not sitting here saying he's going to win the Masters.
Yeah.
But you don't think he's going to make it competitive? You don't think he's going to be in the conversation on Masters Sunday?
Listen, we know what he's capable of. We've seen this guy dominate, and obviously he's out of his prime. But health has always been a factor. Will he be able to hold up? I'm not worried about his talent. Obviously, he's a skilled golfer, but the guy is broken down. You know what? At some point, he has to give. It has to give, because I just don't see him playing this well and this consistently with the injury history that he has.
Now, there is something to that. I feel like what we've seen since the injury is he's been close at times through Thursday, Friday, maybe even into Saturday. But once he hits the back nine on Sunday, he tends to fall apart. The Valspar was the first time he hasn't done that. So maybe he is building up the conditioning. The conditioning still worries me. Sunday is what worries me. Mm-hmm. I think he can be just as competitive as anybody else Thursday through Saturday. It's can he keep it going for that final 18 holes on Sunday? And this was the first time he did. That's why I'm all of a sudden so in. That putt he hit on 17, that's old school Tiger. That's Tiger from 10, 12 years ago. If he's hitting those putts, and he came close on 18, if he's hitting those putts, he's going to be in the conversation. If he's hitting 44-foot putts on Sunday, you can't count him out. Because I think, let me ask you this. Can we agree on this? He can do enough Thursday through Saturday to be in the conversation on Sunday.
Yeah, I think he has the durability to keep up then, yes.
So if he can do that, who's to say that maybe it's building up with conditioning? It's not all going to come at once. You have to think everything for him is building up to the Masters, right? Mm-hmm. There's a reason he's gotten progressively better. Maybe his whole plan is, okay, I'm going to be fully conditioned by the Masters. That's what I think is happening here.
Yeah, maybe. It can happen. He can be competitive. He won a pretty big tournament, or he came in second place in a pretty big tournament, one stroke behind the leader, and he looked very, very sound out there. I don't know, though. I think at a big stage, you're at the Masters, you have the history Tiger Woods has, you haven't been the same since you were caught cheating by your wife, and golf,
and numerous back surgeries.
And the injuries, the whole 9 yards. That was the start of the demise of Tiger Woods. We can both agree on that.
Yes.
I want to see it so badly. I think everyone wants to see it. The guy, and J.J. Watt tweeted it out.
Everybody did.
The guy does more for the sport of golf than any other athlete does for their respective sports. They need him. Golf needs him. I want to see him do well. I'm still hesitant to buy in, though. I don't know. I just don't know. This guy has had a couple decent tournaments, has looked good enough. Is he building it up, or will he stumble due to his health concerns?
I'm not, and we'll talk about kind of what he is in the Masters. There's still a couple more tournaments, too, what he could be in the Masters a little later. But what I took away from this weekend is that the Masters are now going to be very interesting, more interesting than they've been in a long time. He's at least making us have this conversation. Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this, and I'll ask the people at home too. You watched down the stretch, right? Did you have it on?
Yeah.
Or were you at least checking in on it?
Yeah.
Would you have done the same if it was just Casey and Reed going back and forth?
Hell no.
And it was fascinating watching the two of them go back and forth too. But you're right. America's not focused on the Valspar Championship. We're sitting here talking about the Valspar Championship, right? Over what was, this is our second segment. We're talking about this over what was a wild NFL week in terms of free agency and trades, and the Patriots made moves. But we're talking about the Valspar Championship, the Catalina effing wine mixer, because of what he did.
Yeah.
And how can you tell me that not just golf fans, anybody who saw that, who has some concept of what sports is and what the Masters is not clamoring for that first weekend in April now? 24 days. I looked it up. Mm-hmm. 24 days until the first day of the Masters.
Yeah, I want him to do well. I don't know how I can state that clear. I want to see Tiger Woods be in the hunt. I want to see him in the upper echelons of current day golf, not history, not with Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, all that. I want to see him compete for the Masters. I do. But I don't know if he will. And I think a part of the appeal, yes, it's Tiger Woods. He's one of the greatest to ever do it. He transcends sports. But it's not going to be like it is now. This is exciting because it is one of the greatest athletes we've ever seen, and athletes, I mean, at their respective sport, that we've ever seen, making a comeback after, damn near a decade of irrelevance. So I look at this as awesome. It's great because it's kind of like it's part of our childhood coming back, but it will wear off.
So are you saying that if he wins the Masters, people will just be done with it?
No, not at all. Not at all. It's the resurgence of Tiger Woods. It will be an awesome storyline, and I'll be excited for that. I think everyone will. But I think that this is getting a lot of play simply because no one expected it. It would be one of the greatest comebacks you've ever seen an athlete make in their career.
Well, remember, after that, you go to the storyline of he's, 3-4 major championships off of the all-time record.
Yeah.
So if he wins the Masters, then you switch to that storyline. Look, the way everybody was glued to their TV yesterday, I just think if Tiger's in it, people are going to watch. Whether he's won a major or not or whatever, he's brought back golf. And the incredible thing about it is that when he was doing his thing first, right, in the early 2000s, there were kids quitting baseball, quitting lacrosse, quitting hockey because they wanted to be like Tiger, because they wanted to golf. Yeah. He made golf a popular sport in this country. And now here he is, 10, 15 years later, fighting off all these competitors that he created
Jordan Spieth
to try to establish his comeback. That's, again, and I said this before the Super Bowl, and unfortunately we didn't get to totally have this conversation, but that's something, Tom Brady, Muhammad Ali, it's that kind. We're watching that caliber of athlete. And I just don't think it's going to get boring. I don't think if it didn't get boring when he went on his initial run, when he was winning every week, I don't know how it's going to get boring now with the comeback story.
Yeah, and I don't think it will be boring, but I don't know. My main point is I don't see it lasting. I think that he'll be decent. His peak is to be an above-average PGA golfer. That's it at this point in his career.
I'll put it that this is I'll leave it on this note because I think this is the most telling. Paul Casey won the tournament, right?
Yep.
And it was his first win, I think, in 8 years. The first question he was asked, I think the first 2 questions he was asked about or what he thought of Tiger Woods. The guy who won the tournament was asked what he thought of the guy who came in second. So, as of Monday, 24 days till the Masters. We'll be talking plenty of it. Can't wait. But we do need to, like we talked about, we did push it, but we do want to talk about NFL free agency. That on the other side, this is Calling It, powered by CLNS.
Calling It is brought to you by American Broadcast Coaches, training the next generation of media talent and communicators. For more information, check out AmericanBroadcastCoaches.com.
Welcome back to Calling It. It was a wild week in the NFL, Alex Lebowitz.
It was, yeah.
And you know who had the best week? For the second year in a row, who had an excellent free agency? The Cleveland Browns are having a great offseason for the second year in a row.
It's amazing.
They could win 6 to 8 games. I would not be shocked if they won 8 games this year. I really wouldn't.
They might be 500 this season. That's pretty crazy.
So let's recap. I'm trying to remember I think they got Jarvis Landry first.
Jarvis Landry to start, then Tyrod Taylor.
Okay, so let's start with Landry. They traded a mid-round pick for him after the Dolphins franchised him, but I think they're going to restructure his deal. I believe the conversation is he'll restructure, so they won't end up paying him that insane contract. Mm-hmm. Total win. Then they get Tyrod Taylor for, a fifth? Third, yeah. Still. Tyrod Taylor, underrated quarterback. I think he's a top 15 guy in the league. I think he was disserviced by the system the Bills ran. He's not the Browns guy of the future, but he will allow them to be competitive while they groom the next guy. And they made some other moves, too, to trade Danny Shelton. We'll get into that in a minute. Trade DeShone Kizer. Pick up a good corner. But the Browns they did great. I would not say they are the worst team in the AFC North. I don't think they are.
No. Yeah. No, yeah, probably not. They made some really good moves. And for the Browns, this is an unbelievable team. The fact that they actually have a proven quarterback.
Yep.
I know Tyrod Taylor isn't anything special, but he is a proven quarterback in the NFL.
And again, he will be better in the Browns system or whatever. They'll probably come up with a new system. But Buffalo did not let him run around. And he's best when he uses legs, moves around inside the pocket and out of the pocket. Buffalo just wanted him three-step drop slant route. That's not who he is.
Yeah.
So I think in an offense more tailored to, no pun intended, to his skills, he'll do a lot. He'll be a lot better. He will look like that top half NFL quarterback that he is.
And he also has Jarvis Landry now. He has a legitimate number one target, not a disappointment like Sammy Watkins.
Jarvis Landry might not even be the number one. Josh Gordon could come back. That's still in play.
Yeah, and who knows what his ceiling is at this point in his career. Their defense, they have a lot of young talent moving up. Obviously, you get rid of Shelton, but there's still a lot of talent on that side of the ball. This team's actually looking like they might be somewhat relevant. I'm not saying Super Bowl contender.
No, I don't even think they're a playoff team, but they'll factor in.
They'll be in the hunt. I don't know if they'll make it, but they'll be in the hunt. Like if someone picks them to be one of the two wild cards,
I wouldn't go that far. I think 500 is their ceiling. But
hey, in the AFC, that might get you in the playoffs.
You know what? You're right. They still got a lot of growing to do. And they still have to play Pittsburgh twice a year. Still have to play Baltimore twice a year.
Yes.
So those are tough games. They're not going into Pittsburgh and winning yet.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. They're still a long way
They
off,
might be the Bengals, but
no, I think they are a better team than the Bengals. Especially the Bengals are going to lose a lot in free agency. Andy Dalton's another year older. Those running backs are another year older. AJ Green's another year older. I don't love the situation Cincinnati's in. I think Cincinnati, and again, still a lot that's going to happen. But as it stands today, I think Cincinnati is going to be a bottom 5 team next year.
I mean, they've been on this really slow decline for like their entire franchise.
Not really. They've just kind of always been like a 6 to 8 win team. Let's talk about the Buffalo Bills, though, because they trade Tyrod Taylor, they trade their quarterback. This is a team that has always struggled to get a quarterback. They finally get to playoffs for the first time since '99, and then they trade that quarterback. And I had Bills fans texting me saying, "Oh, we're going to get Rosen now. Rosen's the guy." I don't know if the Bills can trade up to get Josh Rosen. And if that's what they're banking on, this was a terrible move. I think they're in play for Cousins.
Yeah.
They have to be, because here's how I see it happening. I think Barkley now goes at 1 to the Browns, which I don't love the idea of picking a running back at number 1, but given the situation, I think the Browns can do it. Barkley goes at number 1. You're going to have Rosen or Darnold go at number 2 to the Giants. The whole draft hinges on that third pick, the Indianapolis Colts. Let's say that if the Colts take a quarterback, that's massive, because it means Andrew Luck's career's over.
Yeah.
I think the Colts trade at 3, and that's where either Rosen or Darnold goes if they're not taking it 2. So you have the Jets with the 6th pick in 3 picks in the top 50 that they could use to go get that pick from the Colts. You have the Broncos sitting at 5, who might move up 2 spots to take a quarterback. And even if the Colts don't just decide to stay, they don't take a quarterback, they take Chubb or they take Fitzpatrick or whoever, the Browns are going to take a quarterback at 4. So I'm not sure, with a chance that 3 quarterbacks go in the top 4 and the Bills not having as good of an offer in 2 other teams to move up, I don't know how they get Rosen. Could they get Josh Allen? Possibly.
Baker
Mayfield, definitely a possibility. Lamar Jackson, but I don't know why they would trade Tyrod Taylor and then draft Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
That doesn't make a lot of sense, but I don't know how they get Rosen. Maybe if Josh Allen is taken ahead of him, which I think would be a mistake, maybe then they can move up and get him. But the Bills, I'm trying to figure out what their plan is at quarterback, because I don't think they can. Maybe they can get Rosen. I don't think they can bank on it, given what the Jets and Broncos can offer, and we know that the Broncos love Josh Rosen.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if they can get Cousins, because unlike some of these other teams, the Jets, the Broncos, again, that are in the bidding for Kirk Cousins, the Bills don't have the cap space.
And they're in Buffalo.
The Broncos are in Denver. But
Denver's great.
I'm not sure what Buffalo's doing here.
Yeah. Denver's, just side note, Denver is a way better destination than Buffalo. I don't know. Maybe they move up. Maybe they take the picks that they have and then, 2 through 5 and they trade them up. I don't see them doing that, though. I think they'll probably take a quarterback first or second round. Maybe it's a Baker Mayfield. Maybe it's a lesser-known guy. It's clear that they didn't think Tyrod Taylor was the answer, so they're gonna maybe rebuild this upcoming season. I mean, what's the rush with that team? They have a coach in place that they seem to really like and they've gotten behind, and they got rid of a guy who was a proven quarterback, but it wasn't working out. I don't think there's any need for a desperation move to trade up and get a guy who you think is going to be the next quarterback.
But again, if the Bills want to draft a developmental quarterback, that's fine. And they have the 21st and 22nd pick in the first round. So they could move up and get a developmental guy.
You can get the guy there, though.
Right. And here's the thing. This is a team that just made the playoffs for the first time in almost 2 decades.
Yeah.
Why are you going to blow it up and start over? You know how tough it is to get to that point. You have to play in the same division as the New England Patriots. You only get so many chances. This quarterback just took you to the playoffs. And now the only quarterback on your depth chart, the only guy you know you have next year, is Nathan Peterman. This just seems like such an unnecessary risk. Before we move on, the Bills have 21, 22, and 53. Those are their first 3 picks. I think this is the Jets, have 6, 37, and 49. Which is a better offer?
6, 37, and 49?
Or 21, 22, and 53.
I mean, you got this number 6 pick. That's way better than anything.
So this Bills fan is trying to tell me that 21, 22, and 53 is a better offer because, quote, the Bills are more desperate. And then when I told him 6, 37, and 49 were better, he said, well, the Bills can throw in a first-round pick because apparently the Jets and Broncos can't do that.
What?
Exactly. Anyway, back to the...
yeah, that's dumb. That's dumb.
We should talk about the Patriots move, too. They go out, they acquire Danny Shelton, former 12th overall pick in the draft. Mm-hmm. They now have the top 2 defensive tackles picked in that draft, Shelton and Malcolm Brown. I mean, I like the player. How do you feel about it? I think they had bigger needs to address, but I'm not going to complain when they get a guy as good as Shelton for a 3rd-round pick and also pick up a late-round pick in this year's draft.
Yeah, that's an important fact.
This is as good of a draft class there's been in the last couple of years. I don't think you can have too many picks in this draft.
Absolutely not. So, if it was a 3rd-round pick this year, I'd be upset because I think they should be utilizing all the picks they have, especially with the amount of picks they've had in years past. Right. They've all been taken away by Roger Goodell. And traded away for Brandon Cooks. So I like it. It adds depth to the defensive line. Is it the priority for this team? No. I think they need to add something in the linebacking core and definitely in that secondary. But they also needed help on that defensive front. There were reports that they were going after Michael Bennett. So it's clear that was a concern for them. My concern with this is I have a feeling they're not going to do anything with that secondary. I have a feeling that they're going to go out there and just work with what they have. So
here's the one thing about this trade that I'm wondering, and you look at their depth at defensive tackle, it's outstanding. You now, in addition to the move, you have Malcolm Brown, you have Vincent Valentine, you have Lawrence Guy, you have Adam Butler, who is great, and I feel like I'm missing somebody else.
Branch is released.
Branch is gone. Yeah. Flowers can play on the inside as well. Malcolm Brown is due I believe it's a $5 or $7 million roster bonus on May 2nd. And he plays a very similar role to Danny Shelton. I wonder if Malcolm Brown, in the last year of his deal, and he's going to want big money next year. I don't know if they're going to pay him. I wonder if this move makes Malcolm Brown expendable. And then if you could move Malcolm Brown for maybe a Josh Norman or some help in the secondary, a Sean Smith, that kind of guy. I would like to see them now shop one of those. Look, I thought Adam Butler was amazing last year. Adam Butler was one of the best undrafted rookies in football. He's a very agile but large man at the defensive tackle position. He can do everything Malcolm Brown can do. Maybe not quite as good, but as depth behind Shelton, who I think becomes the number 1. I think Shelton is a better player than Brown. When it's all not as versatile, but when it's all said and done, I like Shelton better overall. I'm fine with Adam Butler behind him and Lawrence Guy, etc. I would like to see them now shop Malcolm Brown for either. Look, I think if Danny Shelton got you a 3rd, Malcolm Brown can get you a 2nd-round pick. Or shop him in a player-for-player swap for an inside linebacker, for a corner, take one of those draft needs away.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's why I don't think the Patriots will do it. I think they're going to get too cute with it. Obviously, that would be great. They have a lot of depth at that position.
There's not enough minutes in the game for everybody they have at defensive tackle.
But I think they're also, I maybe it's an overcompensation move. Because you could look at it and say, Nick Foles tore them apart in the Super Bowl because Malcolm Butler didn't play. But he also tore them apart because the offensive line for the Eagles dominated that Patriots front 7.
But Shelton's not a pass rusher. He has 1.5 sacks in his career.
I know. And that doesn't make sense to me either. I'm spitballing. I don't know. I would love them to get a Josh Norman type of guy. If you had to trade Malcolm Brown to do it because obviously You have more depth at that position than anywhere else right now. So it'd be great if they did that. I don't think they're going to do it.
Malcolm Brown in this year's third for Josh Norman. Do you think it gets it done?
Malcolm Brown in this year's... Yeah, maybe. If they eat the entire contract, then I could see it getting done, yeah.
If who eats the entire contract?
The Patriots.
There's no contract to eat.
For
That's
Norman?
the thing. He's due... Oh, for Norman?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, they would. But
Yeah.
then again, for the next 3 years, it's an expensive contract. I think it's $13 per.
And it's probably only guaranteed through this season or next
No,
season.
3 years.
All three.
And you look at what Sherman just got.
It's on par.
That's about right. And if you're telling me for the next 3 years, both of them ages 27 to 30, your corners are Josh Norman and Stephon Gilmore, I'm okay paying for that.
Yeah.
I am. And I'd give up the third-round pick this year, I think, because you're going to have to draft a corner anyway.
But guess what?
It's not going to happen.
Belichick had problems with Malcolm Butler. You think he's going to get along with Josh Norman?
He got along with Randy Moss. He got along with Corey Dillon. He got along with Rodney Harrison. Like, we've seen this happen.
Yeah. Maybe he does.
You think Josh Norman likes losing?
I don't think he's the best locker room guy. From what I've gathered from his time with the Panthers and just how he talks to the media, I don't think he's the best locker room guy. I would love to have him on the Patriots. I think he's a great asset. I don't know if Belichick's going to want him on the Patriots. I don't know if he's going to be willing to part ways with a guy like Malcolm Brown when he can go out and maybe get a linebacker instead who's a similar caliber.
And I'd be fine with that too if they trade Malcolm. But the idea of lessening the draft need by trading an excess asset. One more thing real quick before we go here. A lot of people are upset Patriots didn't sign Richard Sherman. After seeing that contract, I'm totally okay with it. Mm-hmm. Here's my thing with Sherman. And people have said for years, right, he's the perfect Patriot. Belichick would love him. Maybe in the locker room, off the field, yes. Richard Sherman can only play on one side of the ball. And he can only play zone. For the versatility coach in Belichick, why would he want one of the least, maybe the least versatile cornerback in football?
You have one guy who can only play man, one guy who can only play zone.
Right.
It'd be a great mismatch.
Like, I don't understand why, and this is not me saying, right, there's a lot of Patriots fans that are coming out after Sherman didn't sign and said, oh, they don't need him. I was saying this before they didn't get Sherman. I said on the show a couple weeks ago, between Talib, Norman, and Sherman, all things considered, Sherman was third on my list.
Really?
Yes. I do not understand why the Patriots fans had a love affair with this guy. He doesn't fit the system. He's coming off a torn Achilles. He got way too much money.
I mean, I'd have him above Talib. I'd want him over Talib.
Okay, clearing up, I was under the assumption Talib was going to be released. You could sign him for the minimum.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I was under that assumption.
Money's a huge factor in this. They weren't going to be able to match what the 49ers could give him. And I think relocation-wise, the guy's from California. He's already out in the NFC West. It's a much easier transition for him on a team that's on the rise. To go coast to coast to play for Bill Belichick, I'm sure he would be up for the challenge, but I don't think he'd be up for the pay cut, and they wouldn't have been able to match what the 49ers gave him.
But Lebowitz, if they kept Jimmy Garoppolo, maybe Sherman would have signed here. Whoa, you created a Super Bowl contender in San Francisco, man.
You give Garoppolo a tag, and then you sign Sherman. That's $40 million on the cap right there.
It's frustrating. They do need to add a corner, though. They do. And at this point, I think the only way they can do it is through the draft. And there's good corners in this draft. There's very good corners in this draft. And the other name, just keep an eye, and we're really up against it. So I'm just going to say the name and leave it at that. Tyrann Mathieu. If he gets cut,
that'd be awesome.
Bring me that guy. Bring me Tyrann Mathieu.
Yeah.
One of my favorite players to watch the NFL. All right. That'll do it for this week's episode. Next week, I think we have some baseball to talk about.
I hope so.
I believe. We'll have some more college basketball, of course. NFL free agency, the big names will have hit, so we'll discuss that as well. Make sure you catch that show. You can get updated on our Twitter page at Call It Podcast, on the CLNS Media website as well, clnsmedia.com. Follow them on Twitter at CLNS Media. Enjoy the storm, everybody. I'm going to guess some people are listening to this after the storm because they've lost power. So I hope you are okay. If you're listening to this post-storm, I hope you got through it easily. We will talk to you next week, probably before the fourth nor'easter, because of you. He's Alex Lebowitz. My name's Alex Barth.
Hang on. There will be another nor'easter. I'm doing the opposite.
The reverse jinx. Okay. So before the fourth nor'easter, before the third, before the fourth, he's Alex Lebowitz. I'm Alex Barth. This has been Calling It, powered by CLNS. We'll talk to you next week. Enjoy those brackets, everybody. Oh, and happy St. Patrick's Day.